What was your school's insane scandal? The manila envelope felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds in my trembling hands as I stared at the bank statement scattered across my desk. $47,000. That's how much Principal Margaret Chen had siphoned from the Morrison Memorial Scholarship Fund over the past 2 years. The same fund that was supposed to send kids like me, kids whose parents worked double shifts just to keep the lights on, to college. I'd stumbled onto it completely by accident 3 weeks ago when I was helping Ms. Rodriguez, our overworked secretary, organize files in the main office. Being student body treasurer meant I had access to financial documents for our fundraising events, but somehow a folder marked Fund, internal use only, had gotten mixed in with the homecoming budget papers. At first, I thought it was just boring administrative stuff. Then I saw the withdrawals. Personal consultation fees, MC, $2,500. Office renovation expenses, $3,200. Educational conference, Miami, $4,100 for a conference that, according to my quick Google search, cost $300 to attend. My stomach had dropped to somewhere around my ankles. Principal Chen wasn't just respected at Lincoln High, she was practically worshipped. In her 15 years here, she transformed our underfunded inner-city school into something parents actually fought to get their kids into. College acceptance rates had tripled. The building got renovated. She gave inspiring speeches about lifting up the next generation and never giving up on your dreams. She'd given me one of those speeches just last month when I was stress crying in her office about my family's finances. My mom cleans offices downtown for $12 an hour, and my dad drives for a delivery company when his back isn't acting up. The Morrison Scholarship was literally my only shot at avoiding crushing student debt. Principal Chen had looked me right in the eye, her voice warm with conviction, and promised me that hardworking students like me were exactly why the scholarship existed. What a load of absolute garbage. Now, sitting in my cramped bedroom with photocopied bank statements spread across my Star Wars comforter, I felt sick. The Morrison Fund should have had enough money to send 12 kids to college this year. Instead, there was barely enough for 3 scholarships, and one of those was supposed to be mine. I tried doing the right thing first. Last Tuesday, I'd nervously approached Mr. Harrison, the assistant principal, with printed copies of the most damning documents. He'd listened politely, nodding along as I explained the discrepancies I'd found. Then he'd smiled that condescending smile adults reserve for naive teenagers and told me I was misunderstanding complex administrative procedures. 2 days later, Principal Chen called me into her office. She didn't yell or threaten, that wasn't her style. Instead, she sat across from me with her hands folded, speaking in the same gentle tone she used during morning announcements. "Sarah, I understand you've been asking questions about school finances," she'd said, my name rolling off her tongue like a disappointment. "I want you to know that spreading unfounded rumors about school administration could be considered a serious violation of our academic integrity policy. Colleges take that kind of thing very seriously when they're reviewing applications." The message was crystal clear: back off, or kiss Princeton goodbye. But as I stared at those bank statements now, with exactly 4 weeks until the annual Spring Forward fundraising gala, I realized Principal Chen had made one crucial mistake. She'd underestimated exactly how far a desperate senior with nothing left to lose would go to fight back. The next morning, I decided to test just how deep Principal Chen's web of lies went. During my free period, I volunteered to help Mrs. Patterson in the guidance office, hoping to get access to scholarship records from previous years. What I found made my blood run cold. "Oh honey, you're looking at the Morrison files," Mrs. Patterson said, glancing over my shoulder as I flipped through folders. "It's such a shame what happened to that fund. Used to send 15, sometimes 20 kids to college every year. Now we're lucky if we can manage 3 or 4. My hand stilled on a folder marked 2019 recipients. 23 names. 23 kids who got their shot because the money was actually going where it was supposed to. What changed?" I asked, trying to keep my voice casual. Mrs. Patterson lowered her voice, even though we were alone. "Well, I probably shouldn't say this, but there were some administrative restructuring costs a couple years back. Principal Chen said the fund needed to be managed more efficiently." She made air quotes with her fingers. "Personally, I think that fancy consulting firm she hired was a waste of money, but what do I know? Consulting firm." I made a mental note to dig into that later. After school, I drove to the public library and spent 3 hours researching Pinnacle Educational Solutions, the company that had received $23,000 in payments from the Morrison Fund according to the bank statements. Their website looked professional enough, all stock photos of diverse students and buzzwords about maximizing institutional potential. But when I dug deeper, something felt off. The business license had been filed just 2 months before their first payment from our school. The listed address was a P.O. box in Delaware. And most damning of all, the company's registered agent was Marcus Chen, Principal Chen's husband. My hands were literally shaking as I screenshotted everything. This wasn't just embezzlement anymore. This was fraud on a massive scale, with fake companies and forged documents. How many other schools was she doing this to? I was so absorbed in my research that I didn't notice someone approaching until a shadow fell across my laptop screen. Well. Sarah Mendez, right? You're in my AP history class." I looked up to see Dylan Rodriguez, yes, related to Ms. Rodriguez from the main office. Her nephew, specifically, and currently the biggest gossip in our grade. My stomach dropped. "Just working on a project," I said, quickly closing the laptop screen. But Dylan was too quick. "Pinnacle Educational Solutions. That's the company my aunt was complaining about last week. Said Principal Chen made her file a bunch of paperwork for them, but she thought it was weird because..." "Because what?" The words tumbled out before I could stop them. Dylan glanced around, then leaned closer. "Because all the correspondence came from Principal Chen's personal email, not the company. And get this, my aunt accidentally saw one of the invoices. It was signed by someone named Marcus Chen, but the signature looked exactly like Principal Chen's handwriting. Holy shit. Ms. Rodriguez knew something was wrong too." "Dylan," I said carefully, "how would you feel about helping expose the biggest scandal in Lincoln High history?" His eyes lit up like Christmas morning. "Are you seriously asking me to help you take down Principal Chen?" I thought about those 23 scholarship recipients from 2019. About my mom working double shifts. About every hardworking kid who'd been robbed of their future so Principal Chen could renovate her office and take fake business trips to Miami. Yeah, I said, opening my laptop back up. I am. Dylan turned out to be more than just the school gossip, he was a legitimate hacker. Not the Hollywood kind who could break into the Pentagon, but good enough to help me dig deeper into Principal Chen's digital footprints. We spent the next 2 days holed up in his basement, surviving on energy drinks and determination. Check this out, Dylan said, pointing at his monitor. I found the email trail between Principal Chen and Pinnacle Educational Solutions. Look at the timestamps. I leaned over his shoulder, squinting at the screen. Every email from Marcus Chen at Pinnacle was sent exactly 3 minutes after Principal Chen had logged into her school account. Either her husband had supernatural timing, or she was having conversations with herself. Can you print these? I asked. Already done. But Sarah, there's something else. His voice had gone serious. I found payments to other fake companies too. Summit Learning Consultants, that's another $15,000. Metro Academic Services, $8,500. All registered to P.O. boxes, all with Marcus Chen as the contact. The room felt like it was spinning. We weren't talking about $47,000 anymore. We were looking at close to $70,000 stolen from kids who needed it most. My phone buzzed with a text from my mom, Mija, got notice from Princeton. Financial aid decision coming Monday. Keep praying. Red heart. Monday was 4 days away. If I didn't get that Morrison scholarship, Princeton would be financially impossible. The cruel irony wasn't lost on me, I might lose my college future because the person who stole it was trying to silence me. We need more evidence, I told Dylan. Something that directly connects her to the fake companies. That's when Dylan's face lit up with the kind of expression that usually meant trouble. What if we could get her to admit it? On recording? The plan was insane, but it might work. The Spring Forward Gala was Saturday night, 3 days away. The entire school board would be there, plus major donors and local media. Principal Chen always gave a speech about the importance of the scholarship fund, standing at the podium while parents wrote checks for thousands of dollars they thought were helping kids. But first, I needed a confession. Wednesday morning, I requested a meeting with Principal Chen. When I walked into her office, she was arranging flowers in a crystal vase, probably bought with stolen scholarship money. Sarah, she said warmly, I'm glad you came to see me. I've been thinking about our last conversation, and I want you to know there are no hard feelings. Sometimes passionate students ask difficult questions, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. I sat down, my phone recording in my jacket pocket. Actually, I wanted to apologize. You were right, I was misunderstanding the financial procedures. Her smile widened. I'm so pleased to hear that. You know, the Morrison Scholarship Committee meets Friday to make final decisions. I'd hate for any misunderstandings to affect your candidacy. About that, I said, my heart hammering against my ribs. I was curious about Pinnacle Educational Solutions. The consulting work they did for the fund, it must have been really valuable to justify the expense. For just a split second, something flickered across her face. Then the warm mask was back in place. Oh yes, they provided essential guidance on fund management strategies. Very professional organization. I'd love to learn more about their approach. Maybe I could contact them directly. I'm thinking about studying nonprofit management in college. Now I definitely had her attention. She leaned back in her chair, studying me carefully. I'm afraid Pinnacle Educational Solutions has concluded their consultation period. They're no longer taking on new projects. That's too bad. Your husband must miss the extra income from running the company. The words hung in the air like a grenade with the pin pulled out. Principal Chen's face went completely white, then flushed red. For 10 long seconds, she said nothing. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. I think this meeting is over, Sarah. And I think you'll find that your scholarship application may face some unexpected complications. I stood up, hand still over my recording phone. I guess we'll see about that, Principal Chen. Walking out of that office, I knew I'd just declared war. But I also knew I had her rattled. The real battle was just beginning. That evening, I was replaying the recording for Dylan when my phone rang. Unknown number. Hello. I answered cautiously. Sarah Mendez. The voice was unfamiliar, professional. This is Janet Morrison from the Morrison Memorial Foundation. I believe we need to talk. My blood turned to ice water. Janet Morrison, as in the Morrison family who'd established a scholarship fund after their daughter died in a car accident. The family whose generous donation was supposed to help kids like me for decades to come. Yes, this is Sarah. I'll be direct. Someone sent me some very disturbing documents about Lincoln High's management of our foundation's money. Bank statements, emails, invoices for companies I've never heard of. The return address just said, a concerned student. Was that you? I looked at Dylan, who was frantically shaking his head and mouthing, don't admit anything. But something in Janet Morrison's voice, exhaustion mixed with determination, made me trust her. Yes ma'am, that was me. She was quiet for a long moment. Can you meet me tomorrow after school? Starbucks on 5th Street. And Sarah? Bring everything you have. The next morning brought a new nightmare. I was at my locker when Stephanie Walsh, editor of the school newspaper, appeared beside me with that predatory smile journalists get when they smell blood in the water. So Sarah, interesting conversation you had with Principal Chen yesterday, she said casually. Word is you've been spreading some pretty serious accusations about financial impropriety. My stomach dropped. Where did you hear that? Oh, you know how it is. Administrative assistants talk. Custodial staff overhear things. The question is, do you have any actual proof, or are you just trying to destroy someone's reputation because you didn't get the scholarship you wanted? That's when I realized Principal Chen's counterattack had begun. She was getting ahead of the story, painting me as a vindictive student making false accusations. By lunch, I could feel the whispers following me through the halls. I heard she forged documents to frame Principal Chen. My mom says she's always been jealous of kids who succeed honestly. Scholarship fraud. That's rich coming from someone whose family probably cheats on their taxes. The worst part was seeing the doubt creep into my friends' faces. Even Marcus Johnson, who'd known me since elementary school, seemed unsure when I sat down at our usual lunch table. Sarah, he said quietly, people are saying some pretty crazy stuff. You're not actually accusing Principal Chin of stealing, are you? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Stop digging or your Princeton application gets an interesting addendum about academic dishonesty charges. Final warning. MC. Margaret Chin. She was done playing nice. That afternoon, I met Janet Morrison at Starbucks, carrying a folder thick with evidence. She was smaller than I'd expected, probably in her 60s, with silver hair and tired eyes that became sharp as razor blades when I spread the bank statements across our table. $73,000, she said after reviewing everything. In 2 years. Do you understand what this means, Sarah? This fund was set up with a $200,000 endowment. At this rate, it'll be completely depleted within 3 years. She pulled out her own folder, much thicker than mine. I've been tracking irregularities for months. Your evidence confirms what I suspected. But here's what you don't know, Lincoln High isn't the only school. We've donated to 6 schools in this district. All of them managed by Pinnacle Educational Solutions. All of them showing similar administrative costs. My hands were shaking as I reached for my coffee. How much total? Best estimate. Nearly $400,000 stolen from scholarship funds across the district. Janet's voice was steel. Money that was supposed to send 150 kids to college. She leaned forward, lowering her voice. The Spring Forward Gala is tomorrow night. Principal Chin will give her usual speech about the importance of education and helping underprivileged students. Then she'll ask for donations to replenish the scholarship fund, donations she'll steal just like the rest. What do we do? Janet Morrison smiled, and for the first time, it reached her eyes. We give those donors exactly what they're paying for, a show they'll never forget. That's when she told me about the surprise she'd been planning. A surprise that would turn Principal Chen's moment of triumph into her public downfall. But first, we had to survive the next 24 hours without her destroying my future completely. The next morning, Friday, exactly 1 day before the gala, I walked into school to find my worst nightmare waiting at my locker. Vice Principal Harrison stood there with a stern expression, holding a manila folder that looked ominously official. Ms. Mendez, I need you to come to the office immediately. We've received some concerning reports about your recent behavior. My heart hammered as I followed him down the hallway, acutely aware of other students stopping their conversations to stare. In the main office, Principal Chin sat behind her desk wearing the kind of sympathetic expression that made my skin crawl. Sarah, please sit down, she said gently. This is very difficult for me, but it's come to our attention that you've been accessing confidential school documents without authorization. Ms. Rodriguez reported that files have gone missing from her office. I stared at her in disbelief. That's not true. I was helping organize. Additionally, she continued, there are allegations that you've been forging financial documents and making false claims about school administration to outside parties. This constitutes both theft and fraud under school policy. Harrison opened his folder and pulled out a form I recognized with growing horror, an academic integrity violation report. My name was already typed at the top. Now, I want to be fair, Principal Chin said, leaning forward with fake concern. You're clearly under tremendous stress about college finances. If you're willing to acknowledge that you made some poor choices and publicly apologize for spreading false information, we might be able to resolve this with just a suspension. Your Princeton application would remain intact. The ultimatum was crystal clear, confess to crimes I didn't commit and let her keep stealing, or have my academic record destroyed forever. I thought about Janet Morrison's words, $400,000, 150 kids robbed of their futures. I need to call my parents, I said. Of course. You have until Monday morning to decide. But Sarah, her voice hardened just slightly. After that, this becomes a police matter involving document forgery and defamation. I'm sure you understand the consequences. I stumbled out of the office in a daze, barely making it to the bathroom before my knees gave out. She trapped me perfectly. Even if Janet Morrison and I exposed her at the gala tomorrow night, Principal Chin could destroy my credibility beforehand by painting me as a criminal. My phone buzzed with a text from Dylan, emergency. Meet me in the computer lab. Now. I found him hunched over his laptop, fingers flying across the keyboard with manic intensity. They're trying to scrub everything, he said without looking up. Someone accessed the school's server remotely last night and deleted tons of financial records. But here's the thing, I've been backing up everything to my personal drive. Can they trace that back to you? Already did. I got called to Harrison's office first period. They're saying I hacked into the school system illegally. He finally looked at me, and his face was pale. Sarah, they threatened to have me arrested. My parents are freaking out. They want me to delete everything and pretend this never happened. The room felt like it was closing in around me. Principal Chin wasn't just covering her tracks, she was systematically destroying everyone who could expose her. There's more, Dylan continued. I intercepted an email this morning. Principal Chin contacted Princeton's admissions office. She told them you're under investigation for academic fraud and suggested they might want to reconsider your acceptance. My vision actually grayed out for a moment. She can't do that. They don't make decisions based on rumors. It's not a rumor if it comes from your principal. Sarah, she's nuking your future from orbit. That's when my phone rang. Janet Morrison's number. Sarah, thank God. Listen carefully, there's been a development. I spoke with the school board president this morning about tomorrow night's plan. But someone tipped off Principal Chin. She knows we're coming for her at the gala. I sank into a chair, feeling the walls close in completely. How do you know? Because she just called me. Very politely requested that I not attend tomorrow's event due to ongoing legal issues with a troubled student making false accusations. She practically dared me to show up, knowing she's already destroyed your credibility. The beautiful irony wasn't lost on me. In exactly 26 hours, Principal Chen would stand before hundreds of wealthy parents and community leaders, asking them to donate money to help disadvantaged students pursue their dreams. The same dream she was systematically crushing to protect herself. Janet, I said quietly, what if we're too late? What if she's already won? There was a long pause. Then Janet Morrison's voice came back, hard as granite. Sarah, my daughter Emma was supposed to graduate from Lincoln High. She was going to be valedictorian, full scholarship to Stanford, the whole 9 yards. When she died, we created this fund because we believed education could change lives. Principal Chen has been stealing Emma's legacy for 2 years. Her voice cracked slightly. Tomorrow night, we're getting it back. Both of our futures depend on it. After hanging up with Janet Morrison, I sat in the computer lab staring at my phone, feeling like I was drowning. Dylan was still frantically typing beside me, trying to create backups of backups, but we both knew Principal Chen was 3 steps ahead of us. That's when Ms. Rodriguez appeared in the doorway, glancing nervously down the hallway before stepping inside and closing the door behind her. Sarah, Dylan, I need to talk to you both. Now. She pulled up a chair, her usual warm demeanor replaced by something fierce and determined. I've been working in this district for 22 years. I've seen a lot of administrators come and go, but I've never seen anything like what's happening here. Dylan stopped typing. Aunt Carmen, you can't get involved in this. They'll fire you. They might fire me anyway. She pulled a flash drive from her pocket. Yesterday, Principal Chen ordered me to destroy all physical copies of scholarship records from before 2020. Said we were going digital and needed to clear storage space. But I've been making copies of everything for months. My heart started beating faster. Everything. Donor correspondence. Original bank statements. Internal memos about fund management. The real invoices from legitimate educational consultants, the ones that show what the costs should have been. She handed me the flash drive. Plus recordings. Recordings. MS. Rodriguez smiled grimly. You think you're the only one who figured out how to record conversations? Last month, Principal Chen called Marcus while I was in her office. She thought I couldn't hear, but I caught enough to know they were coordinating their stories about Pinnacle Educational Solutions. I started recording every meeting after that. I stared at the flash drive like it was made of solid gold. Ms. Rodriguez, this could save everything. But if they find out you helped us. Sarah, I have 3 kids of my own. 2 of them qualified for Morrison scholarships that no longer exist because of what she's done. Sometimes you have to decide what's more important, keeping your job or keeping your soul. Dylan was already plugging the drive into his laptop. Holy shit, sorry, Aunt Carmen, this is incredible. Look at this memo from August 2020, recommend transitioning to alternative management structure for maximum flexibility. That's literally her planning to start stealing. But it was the audio files that made my blood run cold. Ms. Rodriguez had been busy. Principal Chen's voice came through crystal clear on the first recording. Marcus, the Morrison people are asking too many questions about the consulting fees. We need to space out the Pinnacle withdrawals, maybe create another company. No, they won't investigate if it's under $5,000 per transaction. The second recording was even more damning. Principal Chen talking to someone, presumably her husband, about specific students. The Mendez girl is becoming a problem. Too smart for her own good. If we can't discredit her quietly, we'll have to file formal charges. Academic fraud, document theft, whatever it takes. My hands were shaking as Dylan paused the recording. She'd been planning to destroy me for weeks, maybe longer. There's more, Ms. Rodriguez said quietly. Principal Chen isn't just stealing from Lincoln High. She's been in contact with administrators at Jefferson Middle School and Riverside Elementary. I think she's trying to expand the operation. The scope of it was staggering. This wasn't just about one corrupt principal, it was about a systematic theft that could destroy scholarship programs across the entire district. Ms. Rodriguez, I said, Janet Morrison thinks they've stolen almost $400,000 total. Is that possible? She nodded grimly. Easily. The Morrison Fund was just the beginning. There's the Rodriguez Memorial Scholarship, the Teachers Union Education Grant, the Rotary Club STEM Initiative. She's had her hands in everything. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number, check your email. Important update about your Princeton application. With trembling fingers, I opened my email to find a message that made my stomach drop through the floor. The subject line read, application status under review. The email was polite but devastating. Due to concerns raised by your current academic institution regarding potential academic integrity violations, Princeton was placing my application under formal review. They would make a final decision within 2 weeks, pending resolution of the allegations. I showed the email to Dylan and Ms. Rodriguez, fighting back tears of rage and frustration. She's not just stealing money, I whispered. She's stealing futures. She's stealing dreams. Ms. Rodriguez put her hand on my shoulder. Not if we stop her tomorrow night. But even with all our evidence, even with Janet Morrison's support, I couldn't shake the feeling that Principal Chen had one more card to play. Something that would turn our moment of triumph into complete disaster. I just had no idea how right I was. That evening, I was in my room going over the plan for tomorrow's gala when my mom knocked on my door. She looked exhausted from her double shift, but there was something else in her expression, concern mixed with confusion. Mija, I got a strange phone call today, she said, sitting on the edge of my bed. From someone at your school. A guidance counselor. She said there might be some problems with your scholarship applications. My blood turned to ice. What exactly did they say? Something about financial aid forms being filled out incorrectly. That we might have misrepresented our income. Mom's voice got smaller with each word. Sarah, I swear to you, I didn't lie about anything. Every number was exactly what we made. I felt like I was falling through the floor. Principal Chen wasn't just attacking my academic record, she was going after my family's financial aid applications. One phone call suggesting we committed fraud would be enough to disqualify me from every scholarship, even if the academic charges were dropped. Mom, listen to me very carefully. Did this person ask you to sign anything or admit to any mistakes? She said she wanted to help us fix the errors before they became a bigger problem. Asked me to come in Monday morning to review our tax documents. Mom searched my face with growing worry. Sarah, what's happening? Did we do something wrong? Before I could answer, my phone started buzzing incessantly. Text after text flooded in. Dylan, emergency. They're at my house. Dylan, police car in driveway. Dylan, they have a warrant for my laptop. Dylan, everything's gone. I grabbed my jacket. Mom, I have to go help Dylan. And whatever you do, don't sign anything or meet with anyone from school without me there, okay? I drove to Dylan's house with my heart pounding, arriving just in time to see two police officers carrying computer equipment out of his front door. Dylan stood on his porch looking shell-shocked, his parents flanking him like bodyguards. What happened? I asked, running up to them. Dylan's dad answered, his voice tight with anger. Apparently your principal filed a complaint about cybercriminals hacking into the school system. Had a warrant and everything. They took everything, Dylan said numbly. My laptop, external drives, even my old gaming console. All our evidence, it's gone. Mrs. Rodriguez was there too, having rushed over when she heard. They came to my house first, she said quietly. Took my work computer and the files I had at home. Principal Chen called it a routine security audit, but the timing is pretty convenient, don't you think? I felt like I was watching my entire plan crumble in real time. Without the digital evidence, without the recorded phone calls, all we had left were Janet Morrison's suspicions and my word against Principal Chen's. And after the academic fraud allegations, my word wasn't worth much. There's something else, Dylan said, pulling me aside. Right before the cops showed up, I got a call from Stephanie Walsh at the school paper. Someone leaked information about tomorrow night's plan. She knows about Janet Morrison, knows about the gala confrontation we were planning. She's writing an article about troubled students making false accusations against beloved administrators. The walls were closing in from every direction. Principal Chen had orchestrated this perfectly, discredited me academically, attacked my family's financial aid, seized our evidence, and gotten ahead of the media narrative. By tomorrow night, even if we could prove she was stealing, it would look like a desperate smear campaign by a vindictive student. Dylan, please tell me you have something she can't take. Anything. He looked at me with the faintest glimmer of hope. Remember that first day in the library? When we started digging into Pinnacle Educational Solutions? I nodded. I uploaded everything to a cloud server that night. Not my personal account, a completely anonymous one. If they want that evidence. He managed a weak smile. They're going to have to find it first. Maybe we weren't completely dead yet. The anonymous cloud server turned out to be our lifeline, but accessing it safely was going to be tricky. We couldn't use any of our personal devices. Principal Chen had probably flagged our accounts for monitoring. Dylan suggested we use the computers at the public library, but even that felt risky. What about the backup plan? I asked Janet Morrison when I called her at 9 p.m. Can we still move forward tomorrow night? There was a long pause. Sarah, I'll be honest, the school board president called me an hour ago. Principal Chen has been very thorough. She told them you're a student with emotional stability issues who's been harassing staff and fabricating evidence. They're suggesting I stay away from the gala to avoid being associated with what they're calling a malicious harassment campaign. My heart sank. So we're giving up. I didn't say that. Janet's voice hardened. I said she's been thorough. But she made one mistake, she assumed I'd back down quietly. Tomorrow night, I'm not just attending that gala. I'm bringing the FBI. The FBI. The Morrison Foundation operates across state lines, which makes this federal fraud. I spent today on the phone with Agent Rebecca Martinez from the White Collar Crime Division. She's very interested in our evidence, especially the recordings of Principal Chen coordinating with her husband. For the first time in days, I felt a spark of hope. But the recordings were on Ms. Rodriguez's seized equipment. Not all of them. I've been making my own recordings since our first conversation. Including one from this afternoon when Principal Chen called to threaten me. I sat up straighter. She threatened you. Oh, she was subtle about it. Mentioned how unfortunate it would be if the foundation faced legal liability for enabling false accusations against educational professionals. Suggested that supporting your claims could result in expensive lawsuits that might bankrupt the scholarship fund entirely. The audacity was breathtaking. Even while stealing from the scholarship fund, Principal Chen was threatening to destroy it completely if anyone tried to stop her. Janet, what does this mean for tomorrow? It means Principal Chen is going to give her speech about the importance of education while FBI agents watch from the audience. And when she asks for donations to replenish the scholarship fund she's been stealing from, Agent Martinez is going to have some very interesting questions for her. Saturday morning brought one final bombshell. I was getting dressed for what felt like the most important day of my life when my phone rang. Princeton University. Miss Mendez. This is Dr. Patricia Williams from Princeton Admissions. I'm calling about the concerns raised by your principal regarding academic integrity violations. My hands went numb. Yes, ma'am. I want you to know that we take these allegations very seriously. However, we also received some unusual correspondence yesterday that's raised questions about the source of these concerns. Can you tell me about your relationship with Principal Chen? Unusual correspondence. We've had some disagreements recently about school financial matters. I see. Miss Mendez, without going into details, I'll say this, we've had situations before where students who report misconduct face retaliation. If that's what's happening here, we want to support you, not punish you. Your application remains under review, but I wanted you to know we're looking at the full picture. After hanging up, I realized someone else was fighting for me behind the scenes. Maybe Ms. Rodriguez had reached out, or Janet Morrison, or even Dylan's family. Whoever it was, they were helping keep my future alive. 5 hours until the gala. 5 hours until Principal Chen would face justice, or successfully destroy everyone who tried to stop her. I spent the afternoon at Dylan's house, both of us too nervous to eat, going over every detail of what would happen. Agent Martinez had contacted us through Janet Morrison. We were to act completely normal, let Principal Chen give her speech, and wait for the signal. What if she doesn't show? Dylan asked. What if she knows about the FBI and just disappears? That possibility had been keeping me awake at night. But at 4 p.m., we got our answer. The school's automated calling system sent a cheerful reminder to all families, don't forget tonight's Spring Forward Gala. Principal Chen looks forward to celebrating another successful year of supporting our students' dreams. She was going to brazen it out to the very end. At 6 p.m., 2 hours before the gala, I was standing in my bedroom mirror adjusting my dress, the same black one I'd worn to my grandfather's funeral, when my phone exploded with notifications. Dylan was calling, texting, and apparently having a complete meltdown. Sarah, answer your phone now, read his most recent text, followed by, emergency, in all caps. I called him back immediately. What's wrong? Ms. Rodriguez just called me, Dylan said, his voice shaking. Principal Chen called an emergency school board meeting for 7 o'clock tonight. 1 hour before the gala starts. My stomach dropped. About what? About us. She's presenting what she calls comprehensive evidence of a coordinated harassment campaign against school administration. Forged documents, illegal hacking, defamation, everything. She's asking the board to authorize criminal charges before the evening ends. I sank onto my bed, dress crumpling around me. She's trying to have us arrested before the FBI can arrest her. It gets worse. Stephanie Walsh's article goes live on the school website at 7:30. I saw a preview. The headline is Local Students' False Accusations Threaten Beloved Principal's Career. It's a complete hit piece, Sarah. She interviewed 3 school board members who all vouched for Principal Chen's integrity and expressed concern about troubled students making desperate allegations. The timing was surgical in its precision. By the time wealthy donors arrived at the gala at 8 o'clock, they'd see news of criminal charges being filed against a vindictive student who tried to frame their beloved principal. Janet Morrison and her FBI agent would walk into a room full of people primed to see them as either gullible victims or co-conspirators. Dylan, call Janet Morrison. Tell her what's happening. Already tried. Her phone goes straight to voicemail. That's when my mom appeared in my doorway, holding the landline phone with a strange expression. Mija, there's someone on the phone for you. Says she's Agent Martinez with the FBI. I grabbed the phone so fast I nearly dropped it. Agent Martinez. Miss Mendez, we have a problem. Someone tipped off Principal Chen about tonight's operation. 20 minutes ago, Marcus Chen boarded a flight to Mexico City. Principal Chen withdrew $15,000 in cash from 3 different bank accounts yesterday. The room started spinning. Are they running? We don't think so, at least not yet. Mrs. Chen is still planning to attend the gala, probably to maintain appearances. But we've lost our window for a coordinated takedown. If we move too aggressively tonight and she lawyers up immediately, her husband could disappear permanently with evidence we'll never recover. I felt like I was drowning. So what happens now? We're going to proceed, but more carefully. I need you to act completely normal tonight. Don't confront her, don't give any indication you know about the FBI investigation. Can you do that? Agent Martinez, there's something else. Principal Chen called an emergency school board meeting for 7 o'clock. I think she's trying to have me arrested before the gala starts. There was a long pause. That would actually work in our favor. If she files criminal charges based on falsified evidence while we're documenting her own crimes, it strengthens our case considerably. But Miss Mendez, this means tonight is going to get much worse before it gets better. After hanging up, I sat in my room for 10 minutes, trying to process what was about to happen. In less than 2 hours, I would walk into the Spring Forward Gala where Principal Chen might have me arrested in front of everyone I knew. My parents, my teachers, college representatives, local reporters, they'd all watch me get handcuffed while she played the victim of a malicious teenage sociopath. But if Agent Martinez was right, if this was all being recorded and documented, then Principal Chen's moment of triumph would be the evidence that finally destroyed her. Dylan texted one final update at 6:45, board meeting started early. Ms. Rodriguez says they're voting on criminal charges now. I finished getting ready and walked downstairs to where my parents were waiting by the door, both dressed in their best clothes, both beaming with pride about their daughter being honored at the scholarship gala. They had no idea they were about to watch my entire world explode. The Lincoln High Gymnasium had been transformed into something magical. Soft lighting, elegant table settings, and a stage decorated with banners celebrating excellence in education. Parents in cocktail dresses and suits mingled with teachers, school board members, and local business leaders, all clutching wine glasses and speaking in the hushed, reverent tones reserved for important educational events. I stood near the entrance with my parents, scanning the crowd for any sign of Agent Martinez while trying to look like a normal student attending her scholarship ceremony. My mom kept adjusting my dress collar, nervous energy radiating from her like heat. You look beautiful, Mija, she whispered. Your abuela would be so proud. I managed a weak smile, knowing that in approximately 30 minutes, when Principal Chen announced that I was being charged with fraud and harassment, my parents would be the most humiliated people in this room. That's when I spotted her. Agent Martinez wasn't what I'd expected, mid-40s, African-American, wearing a simple black pantsuit that helped her blend perfectly with the other professional women scattered throughout the crowd. She caught my eye for just a moment and gave the tiniest nod before turning back to her conversation with someone who looked like a school board member. Dylan appeared at my elbow, looking pale but determined. His parents had insisted on attending despite everything, partly to support him and partly, I suspected, to witness whatever was about to unfold. Ms. Rodriguez was there too, staying close to the refreshment table and avoiding eye contact with anyone in administration. Any word on the board meeting? I whispered to Dylan. Ended 20 minutes ago. Whatever they decided, they're keeping it quiet until after Principal Chen's speech. He glanced toward the stage. Speaking of which, Principal Chen had just stepped up to the podium, resplendent in a navy blue dress that probably cost more than my mom made in a week. The crowd gradually quieted as she adjusted the microphone, her practiced smile radiating warmth and authority. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our annual Spring Forward celebration, she began, her voice carrying easily across the gymnasium. Tonight we gather to honor not just academic achievement, but the power of community support to transform young lives. The irony was so thick I could barely breathe. She was literally talking about transforming young lives while systematically destroying them. For 15 years, I've had the privilege of watching this school district grow and flourish, Principal Chen continued. We've seen college acceptance rates triple, graduation rates soar, and most importantly, we've watched countless students from challenging backgrounds achieve dreams they never thought possible. Scattered applause rippled through the audience. My dad beamed beside me, completely caught up in her inspiring words. That transformation is only possible because of generous donors who believe in our mission. Tonight, I'm thrilled to announce that we've received over $50,000 in new scholarship commitments for next year's graduating class. My heart lurched. $50,000 that she was already planning to steal, just like all the rest. But then something shifted in Principal Chen's demeanor. Her smile flickered slightly as her eyes found someone in the crowd, Agent Martinez, I realized. For just a split second, uncertainty crossed her features before the professional mask snapped back into place. However, she continued, her voice taking on a more serious tone, I must address some recent challenges our school has faced. Unfortunately, we've discovered evidence of serious misconduct by a student who has been making false accusations against school staff while attempting to access confidential financial records. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Conversation stopped. All eyes turned toward the stage as Principal Chen prepared to destroy my life in front of 300 people. It pains me to announce that criminal charges have been filed tonight. The words hit me like a physical blow. Criminal charges. Filed tonight. This was it, my life was about to be destroyed in front of everyone I'd ever known. But then Principal Chen's expression shifted again, and I realized something was wrong. She was looking past me, toward the back of the gymnasium, where two men in dark suits had just entered. One was speaking quietly into what looked like a radio. The charges, Principal Chen continued, her voice slightly less steady now, involve allegations of financial misconduct, document forgery, and harassment of school personnel by Margaret Chen. Agent Martinez's voice cut through the gymnasium like a knife. She was walking toward the stage now, her FBI badge clearly visible. You're under arrest for federal fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy. The silence that followed was deafening. 300 people frozen in complete shock as Agent Martinez climbed the steps to the stage. Principal Chen stood paralyzed at the podium, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. There's been a mistake, Principal Chen finally managed, but her voice cracked on the words. I was just explaining about a troubled student who... Mrs. Chen, please step away from the microphone, Agent Martinez said firmly. The two agents from the back of the room were moving through the crowd now, and I noticed at least 3 more positioned near the exits. This is outrageous, came a voice from the audience. School Board President Dr. Williams stood up, red-faced with indignation. Agent Martinez, I spoke with you earlier about these baseless accusations. We have evidence that this is all a fabrication by a vindictive student. Agent Martinez turned to address the crowd, her voice carrying clearly without the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been investigating allegations of systematic theft from multiple scholarship funds in this district. Over the past 6 months, we've documented evidence of approximately $400,000 in fraudulent transactions. Gasps erupted throughout the audience. I heard my mother whisper, Dios mío, beside me. The investigation began, Agent Martinez continued, when a concerned community member provided us with bank records showing suspicious activity in the Morrison Memorial Scholarship Fund. That community member was not a student, it was Mrs. Janet Morrison herself. Janet Morrison stood up from a table near the front, her silver hair catching the stage lights. My daughter Emma died believing that education could change the world. That belief has been perverted and corrupted by someone who stole from the very students she claimed to champion. Principal Chen finally found her voice. This is a conspiracy. That student, Sarah Mendez, she forged those documents. She's been harassing me for weeks. Actually, Agent Martinez said, producing a tablet from her jacket, we have recordings of you coordinating these thefts with your husband Marcus. Would you like me to play them for everyone? The blood drained from Principal Chen's face. Those recordings are illegal. Obtained without consent. The recordings were made by your own secretary, Mrs. Carmen Rodriguez, who became concerned about financial irregularities and began documenting suspicious conversations in her workplace. Perfectly legal under federal whistleblower protection laws. Ms. Rodriguez stepped forward from her position by the refreshment table, her chin raised defiantly. I've worked in this district for 22 years. I've never seen anything as disgusting as what you've done to these kids. Dylan grabbed my arm, squeezing tight. Around us, the crowd was buzzing with shocked whispers. I caught fragments of conversation, $400,000. FBI investigation. That poor student tried to expose it. But Principal Chen wasn't finished fighting. Even if there were irregularities, they were administrative errors. Miscategorized expenses. Nothing criminal. Agent Martinez smiled coldly. Mrs. Chen, your husband Marcus is currently in federal custody at Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport. His flight to Mexico City was delayed. He's been very cooperative about explaining how Pinnacle Educational Solutions and your other shell companies operated. The trap had been perfect. While Principal Chen was standing here trying to destroy me, the FBI had been closing the net around her entire operation. Her husband's attempted flight had given them everything they needed. Ladies and gentlemen, Agent Martinez announced to the stunned crowd, the scholarship funds will be fully restored. Anyone with information about irregular scholarship distributions over the past 3 years should contact our field office. This investigation is far from over. As the handcuffs clicked around Principal Chen's wrists, she looked directly at me across the gymnasium. Her mask of respectability had finally slipped completely, revealing something cold and vicious underneath. You have no idea what you've cost yourself, she hissed as Agent Martinez led her toward the exit. This was never about the money, it was about teaching ungrateful little parasites like you to know your place. The gymnasium erupted in chaos as she disappeared through the doors. But all I could think about was that final admission, it had never been about the money. It had been about power. The aftermath of Principal Chen's arrest was surreal. FBI agents efficiently processed the crime scene while 300 stunned guests stood around clutching wine glasses, unsure whether to leave or stay. Local news crews had somehow materialized within minutes, their camera lights turning the elegant gala into something that looked more like a movie set. I was still standing frozen near the entrance when Dr. Patricia Williams from the school board approached me, her face pale with what looked like genuine remorse. "Sarah," she said quietly, "I owe you an enormous apology. When Principal Chen presented her evidence against you at tonight's board meeting, it seemed so comprehensive, so convincing." "What kind of evidence?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Forged emails supposedly from your account. Fabricated financial documents with your digital fingerprints on them. Even a psychological evaluation suggesting you had a pattern of making false accusations when under stress." Dr. Williams shook her head. "She had us convinced you were having some kind of breakdown." The scope of Principal Chen's manipulation was staggering. She hadn't just been stealing money, she'd been systematically preparing to destroy me if I ever became a threat. How long had she been planning this framed job? Weeks? Months? Dylan appeared beside me, his face flushed with a mixture of relief and residual terror. "Sarah, Agent Martinez wants to talk to us. She says there's something we need to know about the other schools." We followed Agent Martinez to a quiet corner where she'd set up a temporary command station with laptops and case files. Janet Morrison was there too, looking exhausted but grimly satisfied. "The good news," Agent Martinez began, "is that we've recovered most of the stolen funds. Marcus Chen kept detailed records of every transaction, probably for tax purposes. The money is sitting in accounts we can trace and freeze." "What's the bad news?" I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to hear it. Principal Chen wasn't working alone. We've identified at least 12 other administrators across 6 school districts who were part of this network. They've been systematically targeting scholarship funds for low-income students specifically because they knew those families would be least likely to have the resources to investigate irregularities. My stomach turned. 12 other principals. Principals, assistant superintendents, financial coordinators. It was a coordinated operation. They shared strategies for creating shell companies, laundering money, and most importantly. Agent Martinez paused, her expression darkening. Identifying and neutralizing students who asked too many questions. Janet Morrison leaned forward. "Sarah, you weren't the first student to discover suspicious activity. Over the past 3 years, at least 8 other students across different schools tried to report financial irregularities in their scholarship programs." "What happened to them?" Dylan asked. "Academic fraud charges. Disciplinary actions that destroyed their college prospects. One girl in Phoenix had her entire family investigated by ICE after she reported missing scholarship funds." Agent Martinez's voice was tight with anger. "These people didn't just steal money, they weaponized the educational system against the exact students it was supposed to help." The weight of it hit me like a physical blow. I thought this was about one corrupt principal at one school. But this was bigger, a conspiracy targeting the most vulnerable students in the system, students whose families didn't have the connections or resources to fight back. "Agent Martinez," I said slowly, "what would have happened to me if Janet Morrison hadn't gotten involved?" She looked at me for a long moment. "Honestly? Criminal charges, academic expulsion, probably your family facing immigration investigations even though you're citizens." Principal Chen had a very thorough playbook for destroying troublemakers. Around us, the gala continued its strange transformation from elegant fundraiser to crime scene. But I was beginning to understand that tonight wasn't an ending, it was just the beginning of something much larger. Something that was about to get very dangerous. 2 days after the gala, I thought the worst was over. Principal Chen was in federal custody, the stolen money was being recovered, and my Princeton acceptance was officially reinstated. Dylan and I had even made the front page of the Metro Herald as student whistleblowers who exposed million-dollar education fraud. Then Agent Martinez called at 6 a.m. on Monday morning. "Sarah, I need you and your family to stay home from school and work today. We're sending protective detail to your house within the hour." I sat up in bed, instantly awake. Protective detail? Why? Because Principal Chen made bail last night, and 3 hours later, someone firebombed Janet Morrison's car. My blood turned to ice water. "Is she okay?" "She's fine, the car was parked in her driveway, she wasn't in it." "But Sarah, this wasn't random vandalism. Someone spray-painted 'Snitches Pay' on her garage door. We think the other administrators in Chen's network are trying to intimidate witnesses before we can build cases against them." 20 minutes later, 2 federal agents were sitting in our living room while my parents peppered them with increasingly frantic questions in a mixture of English and Spanish. My mom kept crossing herself and muttering prayers, while my dad paced back and forth asking how we'd gone from scholarship problems to needing police protection. "The investigation has expanded significantly," Agent Martinez explained. "We've identified what we're calling the scholarship skimming network, 14 administrators across 7 states who've stolen approximately $1.2 million from need-based education funds over the past 4 years." The number hit me like a physical blow. $1.2 million. Money that should have sent nearly 300 low-income students to college. "But here's the problem," she continued. "Principal Chen was just middle management. The network was organized by Dr. Richard Hawthorne, the regional superintendent for educational services. He provided the legal framework, the shell company templates, and the intimidation strategies. He's also Margaret Chen's brother-in-law." Dylan, who'd arrived with his Aunt Carmen 20 minutes earlier, looked up from his laptop. "Agent Martinez, I think I found something. Dr. Hawthorne sent an email to 12 different school districts this morning. Subject line, immediate action required, student disciplinary protocols." He turned his screen around so we could see. The email was bureaucratic doublespeak, but the message was clear. Any students who had made unfounded allegations about administrative procedures should be immediately suspended pending investigation for academic misconduct and defamation of school personnel. "They're going after every kid who tried to report them," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Agent Martinez nodded grimly. "We've already had reports from Phoenix, Denver, and Atlanta. Students who came forward with evidence are suddenly facing expulsion hearings. Parents are being threatened with legal action. One family in Colorado had their house vandalized with racial slurs after their daughter testified to our investigators. Ms. Rodriguez spoke up from the corner where she'd been quietly taking notes. Agent Martinez, there's something else. I got a call this morning from the district's new interim superintendent. They're offering me early retirement with full benefits if I agree to sign a non-disclosure agreement about anything I witnessed while working under Principal Chen. How much are they offering? Agent Martinez asked. Enough to make it very tempting for someone with 3 kids and a mortgage. The room fell silent as we absorbed the implications. They weren't just targeting students, they were systematically buying the silence of any adult witnesses who could testify against them. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Still think you're a hero? Check the news. I looked up the local news website and felt my stomach drop through the floor. The headline read, Federal Investigation Disrupts Scholarship Program, Hundreds of Students May Lose College Funding. The article painted Agent Martinez's investigation as bureaucratic overreach that was now preventing legitimate scholarship distributions while the legal case played out. It quoted several concerned parents worried that their children would lose college opportunities because of hasty federal intervention based on questionable student allegations. They're turning us into the villains, I whispered. Agent Martinez leaned forward. Sarah, this is exactly why we need you to testify before the federal grand jury next week. Your evidence, combined with the recordings Ms. Rodriguez provided, can break this conspiracy wide open. But I won't lie to you, it's going to get worse before it gets better. Outside, I could hear a car driving slowly past our house for the 3rd time in an hour. The car drove by our house again at 2 p.m., slowing down just enough for me to see the driver taking photos through the passenger window. I was watching from my bedroom when my phone rang, Princeton University again. Miss Mendez, this is Dean Harrison from Student Affairs. I'm calling because we've received some very disturbing information about your recent media attention. My heart sank. What kind of information? We had a call this morning from someone claiming to be a federal prosecutor. They suggested that students involved in ongoing criminal investigations might not be suitable candidates for admission, regardless of the circumstances. His voice carried a note of confusion. The strange thing is, when we tried to verify this with the actual prosecutor's office, they had no record of the call. Someone was impersonating federal officials to sabotage my college prospects. Dean Harrison, Agent Martinez with the FBI can verify everything about my involvement in their investigation. We've already spoken with Agent Martinez, which is why I'm calling. Miss Mendez, someone is working very hard to destroy your reputation. We just wanted you to know that Princeton stands behind our students who demonstrate moral courage, even when it's difficult. After hanging up, I found Agent Martinez in our living room reviewing case files with my parents. They're impersonating federal prosecutors now, I told her. She looked up sharply. Who called you? Not me, Princeton. Someone called the university claiming to be a prosecutor and suggesting they shouldn't admit students involved in criminal investigations. Agent Martinez was already on her phone. This is Martinez. I need a trace on fraudulent federal impersonation. Yes, Princeton University admissions office, sometime this morning. Dylan burst through our front door without knocking, his face flushed with excitement and terror. Sarah, you need to see this. My cousin Miguel just sent me something from Jefferson Middle School. He pulled up a video on his phone, shaky footage from what looked like a school board meeting. Dr. Richard Hawthorne stood at a podium, his silver hair and expensive suit giving him an air of distinguished authority. The recent allegations against dedicated educational professionals represent a coordinated attack on public education itself, he was saying. We cannot allow disgruntled students and outside agitators to undermine the institutions that serve our communities. But it was what happened next that made my blood run cold. The camera panned to show the audience, dozens of parents holding signs reading, "Support our principals," and "Stop the witch hunt." They erupted in applause as Dr. Hawthorne continued his speech. We must protect our administrators from false accusations that threaten to destroy careers and disrupt the education of thousands of students. That's why I'm announcing the formation of the Educational Defense Coalition, a legal fund to support school officials facing baseless federal harassment. Dylan paused the video. Sarah, look at who's in the audience. He zoomed in on the crowd, and I recognized at least 8 people who'd been at our Spring Forward Gala 3 days ago. Parents who'd witnessed Principal Chen's arrest were now publicly defending her and attacking the investigation. How is that possible? I asked. Ms. Rodriguez spoke up quietly. Money. Dr. Hawthorne has been calling major donors all weekend, telling them the FBI investigation will shut down all scholarship programs indefinitely. He's convinced them that supporting the Educational Defense Coalition is the only way to protect their children's college funding. Agent Martinez finished her phone call and turned to us with a grim expression. The impersonation call to Princeton came from a burner phone purchased in Dr. Hawthorne's neighborhood. But here's the bigger problem. 3 more students who were planning to testify next week have suddenly recanted their statements. What do you mean, recanted? Dylan asked. Phoenix, Denver, and Atlanta. All 3 students who had evidence of scholarship theft in their districts have now signed affidavits saying they were mistaken about what they observed. Their families suddenly received anonymous donations to cover full college tuition. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Dr. Hawthorne wasn't just intimidating witnesses, he was buying them off with the very scholarship money he'd stolen, creating a perfect cycle of corruption in silence. Agent Martinez, I said slowly, what happens if I'm the only student witness left? She looked at me for a long moment. Then next week's grand jury testimony becomes the most important hour of your life. And theirs. Outside, the car drove by our house again, slower this time. The federal courthouse felt like a cathedral of justice as I walked up its marble steps at 9 a.m. on Thursday morning. Agent Martinez flanked my left side, my parents on my right, and behind us, a small army of supporters that had grown throughout the week, Ms. Rodriguez, Janet Morrison, Dylan and his family, and surprisingly, 12 other students from across 6 states who had found the courage to come forward after all. The breakthrough had come Tuesday night. Dr. Hawthorne made his fatal mistake when he tried to bribe Alicia Vasquez, a senior from Denver whose family had been threatened after she reported missing scholarship funds. Instead of accepting his offer, Alicia recorded their entire conversation and sent it to Agent Martinez. $50,000 for college, plus another $20,000 for your family's relocation expenses. Dr. Hawthorne's voice had been crystal clear on the recording. All you have to do is sign a simple statement saying you misunderstood some paperwork. Much easier than testifying, don't you think? By Wednesday morning, the story had exploded across national media. Education officials' attempt to by silence of student witnesses ran on every major news network. The Educational Defense Coalition collapsed within hours as donors realized they'd been funding witness tampering. 3 school board presidents resigned. The Colorado family's house suddenly had round-the-clock police protection instead of vandals. Now, as I sat in the grand jury room facing 23 citizens who would decide whether to indict the entire network, I thought about Emma Morrison, the girl who died before she could graduate, whose memorial scholarship had been perverted into a criminal enterprise. Miss Mendez, the prosecutor said gently, can you tell us about the first time you discovered irregularities in the Morrison Memorial Scholarship Fund? For the next 2 hours, I walked them through everything. The accidentally mixed up files, the suspicious bank statements showing $73,000 in withdrawals, the shell companies registered to Marcus Chen, Principal Chen's threats against my Princeton application, and most importantly, the systematic targeting of students who dared to question authority. The conspiracy worked, I concluded, because they knew students like me don't have powerful lawyers or political connections. They counted on us being too scared, too poor, or too intimidated to fight back effectively. The grand jury foreman, a black woman about my mom's age, leaned forward. Miss Mendez, what made you decide to fight back despite those odds? I thought for a moment. Because stealing dreams is worse than stealing money. Every dollar they took represented a kid who might not get to become a doctor, or a teacher, or an engineer. They weren't just committing fraud, they were murdering futures. 3 days later, the indictments came down like dominoes. Dr. Richard Hawthorne, federal conspiracy, wire fraud, witness tampering, racketeering. Principal Margaret Chen, embezzlement, fraud, criminal conspiracy. 12 other administrators across 7 states faced similar charges. The total amount stolen, $1.7 million from funds meant to help over 400 low-income students attend college. But the real victory came 2 weeks later. I was in calculus class when Dylan burst through the door waving his phone. Sarah. The Morrison Foundation just announced emergency scholarship distributions. They're using the recovered funds plus matching donations to create a $3 million endowment. My phone buzzed with a text from Janet Morrison. Emma would be proud. 127 students getting full scholarships this year, including you. Dreams restored. That afternoon, Princeton called with my final financial aid package, full scholarship, plus a work-study program that would let me graduate debt-free. We're particularly excited, Dean Harrison told me, to welcome a student who understands that moral courage is just as important as academic achievement. The scandal made national news for weeks. Netflix is apparently developing a documentary series. Principal Chen was sentenced to 8 years in federal prison. Dr. Hawthorne got 15. But the best outcome was simpler. 127 kids who thought college was financially impossible are now preparing for freshman orientation. Sometimes fighting back against corruption changes more than you ever imagined possible.